minister that came to the Episcopal Church, a man by the name of Gallagher, came, and he did not appreciate that I was moving my membership. But I still thought it was a thing to do, and I could be a Presbyterian with like when I went through communicants class, the idea of the Virgin Mary bothered me considerably. And
the virgin birth,
yes,
mainly.
And the young man who was our assistant to they called him a dean of the Trinity Cathedral. He told me, don't get hung up on it. Just don't worry about it.
Good advice.
And so that was true until we had a minister called Ted Nodder. The Nodders came to the Presbyterian Church as a young couple, and at that time the Presbyterian Church was a big church. We were thriving. There were a lot of young couples. Some of us still at the church. I mean, like the Tibbets, and we were together as young people. Anyway, when I told Ted that I didn't think it mattered, he told me it did. That that if you believed that Christ was God, if you believed in the Trinity, then you had to believe in the virgin birth, that Christ was the Son of God.
So
but he was God.
So how did that sit with you at that point?
Well, I figured that, that I could believe in miracles.
Good.
And that, yes, that I believed that Christ was God, that I do believe in the Trinity. And people have a very hard time with the Trinity. My friends, they just can't understand this Trinity.
Your friends in the Presbyterian Church?
Yes, the ones I go to Bible study with. They just can't, the concept, they don't get.
At any rate, Mama, so you're seeking and everything your parents were tolerant of within certain limits, but what else did they put up with in you that you think they put up with?
Well, like the fact that I disliked Arizona so badly. I went back came back to Montrose with my grandparents in the summertime. When they would come back up.
So with Grandpa Davini?
Yes, and I would stay with them.
And what were their first names, Mama? Lee would know this, but Grandpa Davini.
What do you mean?
What were their first names, their given names?
Oh, Grandpa was George Pierre.
George Pierre.
And
Parr.
Grandma.
Oh, Parr. Parr, Lee says? George Parr?
Well, I guess I've always said Pierre, but it probably is Parr. And Grandma was Alice Elizabeth Savaja
Oh,
before she married.
okay.
And
So, but at any rate, this was another example of your parents kind of accommodating you as an individual.
yes,
So you would spend the summer in Colorado,
yes,
and for just a few years after you moved to Arizona,
yes. Mhm.
and that helped you adjust.
Mhm. So,
And your sisters didn't have that need. Eloise and Ev didn't go with you.
no, just I was the one that went. And like I say, I would spend time with Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Kenneth. And I was a very good friend with my cousin Alice. So I would walk to their house lots of times during the day. My grandparents were very tolerant of me too.
So then, did it make you feel good when you came back to Arizona at the end of the summer?
Well, my folks would come up, and then I would come back with them. And I would get very kind of homesick when it was close to
Oh.
for them to be coming. I would get anxious to see them.
Did you have to do a lot of work at home because Mama wasn't in good health?
We were expected to do things like dishes, and now I would have been maybe even in high school. I don't know how old I was when one time I was not doing the dishes right. I was just letting them go, and I was going to do them, but I was in no rush. And my mother said to me, I could do them in 5 minutes. And I said, why don't you? If you can do them in 5 minutes, why don't you? And they tolerated that. They didn't slap me down for being
the way you were.
yes. I was telling Lee, I had a bicycle, and I rode my bicycle all over Phoenix. The library was, I think, was out on Van Buren, and quite a ways from the house. And I would ride to the library often. But my mother would watch for sales, and there were some stores that were quite a distance from the house. And they would give me the list and let me go, and I would bring home a sack of groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And
So they put to use your restless spirit, or
they, and when I was in high school, there was called the Auditorium Club, and I got to be one of the lieutenants. So they had a captain and 2 lieutenants, and so I went to many performances, and of course that was several miles from home, and they let me take the car. And I was not real tolerant of the fact that my father cautioned me always, about locking the car, looking in before I got in. And I told him, nobody would want me
Oh,
but, you know, he was,
he was protected.
yes. And sometimes it would be toward dusk when I would walk home from Margaret's, Charlotte's house, which was probably a mile, and he didn't like that. He wanted me to come earlier, and I would say, nobody's going to want me. And my dad was, you know, you don't know, just come earlier. But
So, Mama, how did your mom do then in the next years? Was she starting to get really serious when you were in college? Serious with her health?
she really, her health was not bad.
Not bad, good.
And she made our clothes, kept our house, and she would go on the street. She didn't learn to drive. She drove when she was young, but she didn't drive when she was older. And she would take the streetcar, and I have a picture of her, and she has her hat on and her gloves, and it was one, you know, that they snapped on the street, and she's walking with my dad, and she'd gone to have lunch with him, but she's all dressed up, you know, no Levi's, no, you know. And,
No T-shirts.
no, no. But yes, she did the cooking and kept the house. And
Yeah, it was more work in those days too than it is now, probably.
now, Eloise and I helped. Ev, of course, was younger, and I won't say there might not have been some resentment there. And my mother, when we were older, said that the fact that Eloise and I sort of ganged up against Dad, she felt. At the same time, when it came time, Ev was probably in junior high, and they were having things like dance classes for ballroom dancing and that sort of thing. I can remember we thought Ev should have that. I mean, we weren't all against her.
Whereas you had not had those classes, is that right? You and
No,
Eloise?
and I don't think I ever was probably more social than I. She wasn't the Girl Scout. My activities really went around scouting. I had a wonderful Girl Scout leader. Name was Jean Clark, and I was a junior counselor at camp. Jean realized that it would be hard for my parents really to afford for me to go to camp, and so she saw that I got jobs like that at camp, and I would go with Jean in her car to camp. and help her set up, and
Where was the camp?
was in Prescott. And outside of Prescott a bit.
Mm-hmm. So you attended the camp, you weren't a counselor for it?
I started as a junior counselor going to the camp.
Okay.
And the letters that I read between Daddy and me, a lot of them were from while I was at camp.
Oh, I see.
And that would have been when I was in junior college, and by that time I was a full-fledged counselor.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Mama, you were telling a story the other day about your dad, and when he passed away, there was a Supreme Court judge,
Yes.
a state Supreme Court
He was a
judge
state Supreme Court justice.
who attended the service.
My dad and his name was Renz Jennings, and they had office together. They were not partners, but they officed together. And my dad did a lot of research. He was a good research attorney. And I didn't think Renz was, I didn't think he knew the law that my dad did. When Renz was elected to just a judgeship, I just shook my head and I told my dad, he doesn't know the law. And my dad said, that's good because he'll look it up.
Mm-hmm.
That the fact he didn't know it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was your,
then he became a Supreme Court justice.
in
and he
the
won
Arizona state, right?
What?
A state Supreme Court?
Yes, a state one. And at the funeral, I had broken down when I saw my dad. My mother had insisted that I see him because he looked so good. And I just went to pieces. So at the funeral, I didn't go up to view the body. And Renz came by, and I said, I can't go up. And he broke down and cried.
Mm-hmm.
What a wonderful man my father was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now, you also told a story about your dad did a lot of settling of divorce cases, but
well, people would come to him to get a divorce. And my mother said that if he had 5 cents for every one that he talked back together, then went to another lawyer and got a divorce, he would be wealthy.
so he'd get them to try their
Yes,
marriage
he
again.
would counsel them to try it again.
Mm.
And
It wasn't the way he wanted to make his money, huh?
it wasn't, no. And he did a lot of working on wills. And yes, he did. I think I told you, I had a friend. She was at our 60th wedding anniversary. In fact, she was one of the ones that I saw in Phoenix recently. And her dad was up on usury charges because he had lent money and charged more than they were supposed to. And my dad was very supportive of him, and I think got him off on his charges.
Mm-hmm.
felt that the people who he had lent money to, if he hadn't lent it, they would be in a worse spot than they were at paying that interest.
Hmm.
And I told you, and I still feel that a man should be able to earn more than his money. But my dad tried to explain to me why that is not true.
You mean more than a man's money can earn,
Yes, you know,
like with interest on loans?
right. And like Daddy and I have taken advantage of that. We have invested, and yes, our money has earned more money than we probably did. So,
Mama, do you want to talk about then, let's see, did your mother die first before your father? I can't remember.
no, my
It
dad
was
died
vice
first.
versa. Okay,
My mother lived about a year after my father.
okay.
But you wanted me to talk a little about Mo and Guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask one question before now there was a big case that Granddaddy didn't get paid for, is that right? An Indian or something that he took to court?
Oh, I can't remember, Leah. I can't remember
The details?
the details on that.
Okay.
No, Aunt Eva would have been able to tell you.
But so he was helping this man and never got paid for his services, is that the deal?
I think it had to do with trucking. A trucking company.
Mm-hmm.
And
Somehow your father did not get paid for his services, is that the deal?
on one of those,
Yeah, he put in a lot of time and didn't get paid, I think, but,
So,
well,
so Mama, I guess we could come back to your mother and father passing away, but maybe we ought to spend a little time about Mo and Guy.
you might be interested in how they became Mo and Guy.
Sure.
And now my mother did not want to be called Grandma, and she wanted to be called Mammal. So Linda picked up on Mammal, but she differentiated between my mother and Lowry's mother.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was Mammal, and Mo became Mo.
How did Mo like that?
Mo was very receptive to that,
Good.
and
Is that surprising?
we tried to get Linda to call Guy Grandpa, Papa, anything. And one day she never would call him anything. One day we were sitting in the car, and we may have been waiting for Guy, I'm not sure. But when he came down the street, she says, "There's Guy."
How cute.
From then on, he was Guy.
And that was okay with him?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't seem to mind at all.
That's good.
But that's how that came about. And Larry's mother had always kept Lowry very close to her. And I was a possessive wife. And I really didn't appreciate things that she did for me, like fixing up my house. I really wanted to do it myself.
You mean
And-
fixing it up before you moved in?
Well, yes, and even after, like when we would go to the mountains, they had given us a silver service, you know, a teapot and cream and sugar on a tray. And I kept it in a cabinet. And when I would come home, it would be on the buffet. And Daddy was very supportive of me in that. It's blinking. I don't know whether that means anything or not.
Wondering if it, I think it's a picture of the tape, maybe he's running out. Do you think
But,
that could be?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be the battery.
Could be on 5 minutes.
Excuse me, Mama. Shall we check the tape?
Well, it says there's 5 minutes left, I think.
Oh, okay. We have
Uh,
5 minutes.
And I was not a nice daughter-in-law. Now, I helped Mo in certain ways, and I did things she asked, but like before Linda was born, I had an eyelet dress.
Mm-hmm.
It was a skirt and a blouse with a little peplum. And I wasn't, with Linda I did not get extremely large. But my slip, as I got larger, it did not go clear to the bottom of my dress. And we were going to go up to Ferris's. At that time, Daddy and I did not have a car, and we had walked, I think maybe by then we were in the house where we are now. And we had walked up to Mo and Guy's on First Street, not the house where they were at the end, but down the street a little ways. And Mo looked at me and she said, "You can't go looking like that." And I said, "Fine. You just tell the Pharisees I have a headache. And by the time you tell them that, I'm made." And I started off toward home with Guy coming after me.
He felt badly.
Oh, I don't know whether he called me Libby at that time. Don't do that. You know, you look beautiful.
Oh,
You look great. Don't do this. And
so what did you do?
well, I couldn't turn Guy down. I mean,
Oh.
Guy was like a fairy godfather to me, and I had to be careful what I said I wanted in front of Guy, because if I said I liked something or wanted something,
You might get it.
it was like the wagon wheel. Do you remember the bunks, the wagon wheel bunks? They were in a store downtown, and I saw them in the window, and I was
You liked them.